Support for NPR and the following message come from Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. Claim your $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/NPR. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, hello. I'm Brittany Luce, and you're listening to It's Been a Minute from NPR, a show about what's going on in culture and why it doesn't happen by accident. Okay, Adriana Smith was about 9 weeks pregnant. She went to the hospital complaining of headaches. The hospital gave her some medication and sent her home. Later that evening, her boyfriend woke up and he saw that she was gasping for air. Smith's boyfriend then took her to the hospital, where they found out Smith had blood clots in her brain, and shortly after, the hospital determined her brain dead. However, she was already kind of hooked up to life support, and the fetus demonstrated activity, that it was not dead. And so the hospital kept her connected to life support. I recently spoke with UC Berkeley School of Law professor Kiara Bridges. When I first heard about this case, I reached out to Kiara to find out how a situation like this could even be legally possible. So the hospital has said that they have made the decision to maintain Adriana Smith on life support after consulting with medical professionals, but also with lawyers who have tried to interpret what Georgia's abortion law demands. It's a lot to make sense of. Georgia already had a law on the book that banned all abortions after the detection of fetal heartbeat, so around 6 weeks of pregnancy. Georgia's abortion law makes it a crime for anybody to do an act that terminates a pregnancy. And so the legal question is, would removing someone from life support, would that constitute an act that terminates a pregnancy? According to Adriana Smith's mother, April Newkirk, who spoke with WXIA-TV in Atlanta, Smith's son, Chance, was delivered prematurely via emergency C-section on June 13th. A few days later, Newkirk said that the hospital told her Smith would be taken off life support on June 17th. There probably are maternal fetal medicine specialists who are, high-fiving each other. And, there are, obstetricians who are feeling like this is a great day for medicine and for obstetrics and for medical technology. But I think it's also a very terrifying day. I think especially in light of the fact that we realize this incredible medical success, this triumph on a non-consenting person. That legal argument that kept Adriana Smith on life support has launched a bevy of legal and ethical concerns, specifically around the idea of fetal personhood. I think a great way to explain how fetal personhood works. Every state, including the federal government, has laws that prohibit homicide. If a fetus is a person, then an act that intentionally causes the death of a person means that abortion is made illegal through the state's criminal law. And so fetal personhood laws sort of get fetuses, within the range of entities that are protected through criminal law. But according to Kiara, one of the biggest issues with the fetal personhood ideology is that the person creating the fetus loses a core tenet of personhood: agency. In the United States, when a person is rendered incompetent or becomes incapable of making their own medical decisions, the right to make a medical decision kind of goes to other parties. In this case, that other party would have been Smith's family, but this decision was left up to the hospital, who told Smith's mother that they are, quote, legally not allowed to consider any other options. Agency has been stripped because, one, her family of origin could not make decisions for her, but that's because she could not make decisions for herself because of the Georgia abortion law. This is Your Body, Whose Choice? And for the next few weeks, we're looking at the cultural, legal, and ideological frameworks shaping reproductive health in America, and what this means for the near and far future of our families, our personal agency, and our planet. Today, we'll hear from Kiara,
who will break down everything you need to know about this case.
This isn't the first time that this has happened in the United States of America. A couple of years ago, there was a woman in Texas. Her name was Marlise Munoz, who was 14 weeks pregnant when she suffered a medical emergency and was declared brain dead. And Texas kept her on life support in order to continue to gestate her fetus. So these are not circumstances that are so unusual that they will never happen again. Mm-hmm. Also, what people need to know about this case is that abortion laws and abortion regulations, they are not without ambiguity. And so what they do is leave doctors in a position where they cannot do what is in their best medical judgment. Mm-hmm. So if you give rights to fetuses, if fetuses are constitutional persons, if they are legal persons, then that necessarily diminishes the rights of the people who gestate them.
So even though those who argue for fetal personhood believe that human fetuses should have rights and protections in the legal system, what you're saying is that if we follow that line of thought, a pregnant person's personhood is kind of demoted when a fetus legally becomes a person.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely. You cannot give a full panoply of rights to a fetus without diminishing the rights of the person that gestates the fetus. If a fetus has a right to be free of harm, if we can't assault fetal persons, if we can't engage in acts that would injure or cause harm to fetal persons, because I can't engage in an act that causes harm to my neighbor person, we can't do an act that causes a harm to a fetal person. Does that mean that as a pregnant person, as a person that's gestating the fetus, I can't, eat unpasteurized cheese because I might introduce a pathogen into my body that might harm the fetus? Does that mean that I can't refuse a C-section? Let's say that I want to attempt a vaginal birth after having a previous C-section. And I'm like, I really want to try. And my doctor says, well, actually, you're endangering the baby if you attempt the vaginal birth. We think a C-section is best for you. Can I make that decision for myself if that act might cause harm to a fetal person?
We talked about some of the uncharted territory here involved in this whole situation. Now that the child has been delivered, I'm wondering, what are the medical implications here?
Medicine has progressed incredibly. And so I think that we are at this moment in technological development where things that we would only imagine and read about in science fiction and horror, we can actually do those things now. I think especially in light of the fact that we realize this incredible medical success, this triumph on a non-consenting person, on a person who could not consent to permit the treatment that was given to her. The person's family did not consent. So it's really just a really hard, complex event to sort of process.
Coming up,
we all should have questions about whether if Adriana was a white woman and she showed up to her doctor complaining of headaches, whether her doctor would have given her some medication and sent her home.
How Adriana Smith's case has roots in a long history of medical racism.
This message comes from Sattva. Everyone has a unique skill or ability. It just needs to be discovered, then nurtured. One way to foster that is getting quality sleep, which can improve athletic abilities, increase energy, and boost memory and learning. Every Sattva mattress is designed to promote that kind of sleep. In fact, Sattva was named Best Luxury Mattress by SleepFoundation.org. And now, save $200 on $1,000 or more at sattva.com/NPR.
This message comes from Capital One. With the Spark Cash Plus card from Capital One, you earn unlimited 2% cash back on every purchase and get big purchasing power so your business can spend more and earn more. Stephen, Brandon, and Bruno, the business owners of SandCloud, reinvested their 2% cash back to help build the company's retail presence. Capital One, what's in your wallet? Find out more at CapitalOne.com/SparkCashPlus. Terms apply.
This message comes from Charles Schwab. When it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices, like full-service wealth management and advice when you need it. You can also invest on your own and trade on Thinkorswim. Visit schwab.com to learn more. This message comes from Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile took what's wrong with wireless and made it right. They offer premium wireless plans for less, and all plans include high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and nationwide coverage. See for yourself at mintmobile.com/switch.
Okay, so something I feel like we cannot lose in all of this is that Adriana Smith was a Black woman. How does race intersect with all of this?
Black women, Black people in the United States, have higher rates of maternal mortality and morbidity than their white counterparts.
Don't I know it? Every time I go to the doctor, they make sure to bring it up. Don't I know it?
Yeah. Yep. It's kind of hard to avoid knowing that as a Black person, you are more likely to die than non-Black people from a pregnancy-related cause, right? The statistics, depending on whether you measure pregnancy-related causes from 8 weeks after birth or 12 months after birth, Black folks are 3 times as likely as white folks to die from a pregnancy-related cause. And the same is true that they're, much more likely to suffer severe maternal morbidity, which is like a life-threatening medical event during pregnancy. That racial disparity is not a function of like biology. That racial disparity is a function of structural racism. It's a function of interpersonal racism.
I also want to mention, too, that with many other sort of lifestyle outcomes or quality of life measures, increased education or, increased wealth can make it so your outcomes are better. That is not the case with Black women who deal with these kinds of issues.
Absolutely. And so when we're talking about Adriana Smith, I have questions about whether her brain death was avoidable. There are countless stories of Black people who report their symptoms to their medical team, and they are either ignored, disbelieved, their concerns are diminished. And so, we all should have questions about whether if Adriana was a white woman and she showed up to her doctor complaining of headaches, whether her doctor would have given her some medication and sent her home. And then the second question that I have is about whether the state of Georgia and the hospital team would be willing to experiment on this woman if she were not Black. Like, it reminds me of like a premise of a horror movie. Like, a person is brain dead. Their body is like, their organs are being compelled to continue to function in order to gestate a fetus, mind you, that may or may not survive.
In light of the birth of Adriana Smith's son, what new questions do you have about the future of fetal personhood laws? Help me wrap my head around all this.
When we talk about abortion sort of generally, I think the contest has always been between the sort of rights and, decision-making capacity of the pregnant person and then the fetus. And so we've always sort of had to balance, whose sort of interests are going to be prioritized, the pregnant person or the fetus's interest. And so what this case demonstrates is that when fetuses are persons, like, it's no longer a case of balancing the pregnant person's interest against the fetus's interest.
I've asked you some questions. I'm wondering, is there anything else that I haven't asked about that has been on your mind or that you think would be important for our listeners to know in light of recent developments with this situation?
So it wasn't lost on me that the Supreme Court handed down U.S. versus Skermetti shortly after the birth of Chance and shortly after Adriana Smith was removed from life support. U.S. versus Skermetti is a case in which the Supreme Court upheld Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for transgender and non-binary minors. The court said that prohibiting transgender minors from receiving health care that might just keep them alive poses no equal protection issues. And so I was thinking about Adriana Smith's case, and what Skermetti means is that parents of transgender minors cannot direct the medical care of their children. The state is deciding. The state says, we kind of know what's best for that kid. We know that you, parent, just cannot possibly be acting in the kid's best interest if you're deciding to authorize or permit your kid to get gender affirming care. So we, the state, Tennessee knows what's best for that kid. And that's precisely what happened in Adriana Smith's case. The state said to Adriana Smith's mother, you cannot decide what happens to your child. You cannot direct your child's medical care. We, Georgia, we know what's best for the fetus. It's really profound that the state has this much power over individuals. And it's especially ironic to me that the folks championing these laws, the gender affirming care bans, as well as Georgia's abortion law, the folks championing these laws are part of usually, conservative Republican Party, a party that has historically been kind of skeptical of government. Yet here we are.
Kiara, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me about this today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
That was UC Berkeley School of Law professor Kiara Bridges. And I'm going to put on my influencer hat for a second and ask you to please subscribe to this show on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening. Click follow so you know the latest in culture while it's still hot. This episode of It's Been a Minute was produced by
Alexis Williams.
This episode was edited by
Nina Pathak.
Our supervising producer is
Barton Girdwood.
Our executive producer is
Verilyn Williams.
Our VP of programming is
Yolanda Sanguini.
All right. That's all for this episode of It's Been a Minute from NPR. I'm Brittany Luce. Talk soon.
This message comes from Mint Mobile. If you're tired of spending hundreds on big wireless bills, bogus fees, and free perks, Mint Mobile might be right for you with plans starting from $15 a month. Shop plans today at mintmobile.com/switch. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Support for NPR and the following message come from Rosetta Stone, the perfect app to achieve your language learning goals no matter how busy your schedule gets. It's designed to maximize study time with immersive 10-minute lessons and audio practice for your commute. Plus, tailor your learning plan for specific objectives like travel. Get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership for 50% off and unlimited access to 25 language courses. Learn more at rosettastone.com/NPR. This message comes from Charles Schwab. When it comes to managing your wealth, Schwab gives you more choices, like full-service wealth management and advice when you need it. You can also invest on your own and trade on Think or Swim. Visit schwab.com to learn more.